3 weeks later, Jinwoo was starting to think he had made the best deal of his life. The Danuri's dream flew like a dream. The engines ran smooth and quiet. The navigation computer was accurate to the meter. He had already completed 2 cargo runs and was making good money. His crew was small but reliable. Dong-hyun Lee was the best mechanic Jinwoo had ever worked with. The young man could fix anything that moved, and he never complained about the long hours. Mira Choi handled navigation and communications. She was quiet but efficient, and she had a talent for finding the best shipping routes. They were 3 days out from Kepler Station, hauling mining equipment to the Proxima colonies. The job would pay enough to cover ship expenses for 2 months. Jinwoo was finally starting to relax. "Captain," Mira called from the bridge. "I'm getting strange readings from the cargo holds." Jinwoo was in the engine room with Dong-hyun checking the power couplings. "What kind of readings?" "Energy spikes from hold 7. Very faint, but definitely there." Jinwoo and Dong-hyun exchanged looks. They had heard the stories about hold 7, but so far the hold had been perfectly normal. They had stored cargo there without any problems. "Probably just sensor interference," Dong-hyun said. "These old ships have electronic quirks." But Jinwoo was curious. He had been meaning to do a complete survey of the ship's cargo capacity anyway. "Let's go take a look," he said. The 3 of them took the elevator down to the cargo level. Holds 1 through 6 were full of mining equipment, drilling machines, ore processors, and atmospheric converters. Everything was secured properly and looked exactly as it should. Hold 7 was different. Jinwoo had been in this hold dozens of times over the past 3 weeks. It was a large rectangular space about 30 meters long and 20 meters wide. He knew exactly how big it was because he had measured it himself, but now it looked bigger. "That's not right," Dong-hyun said quietly. The far wall of the hold seemed to stretch back into shadows that the lights could not reach. The ceiling appeared higher than before, and there was definitely a humming sound that had not been there yesterday. "Are we looking at the same room?" Mira asked. Jinwoo pulled out his scanner and checked the dimensions. According to the device, the hold was exactly 30 meters long, just like always, but his eyes told him a different story. "Sensor malfunction," he said, but his voice sounded uncertain even to himself. They walked deeper into the hold. Jinwoo counted his steps. At 30 paces, he should have reached the back wall. Instead, the wall still seemed far away. The shadows were getting thicker and the humming was getting louder. "Captain," Mira whispered, "look at this." She was pointing at the floor. In the metal plating, lines of light were starting to appear. They formed patterns that looked almost like writing, but in no language Jinwoo had ever seen. The lines pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. "That definitely was not there yesterday," Dong-hyun said. The humming sound was coming from deeper in the hold. Jinwoo could feel it in his chest now, a low vibration that seemed to sync with his pulse. Against his better judgment, he kept walking toward the sound. The lights on the ceiling were getting dimmer, but somehow he could still see clearly. The walls of the hold were covered in the same glowing lines that had appeared on the floor. The patterns were complex and beautiful, like artwork made of living light. And then he saw the gate. It stood at the far end of the hold, which was definitely much farther than 30 meters. The gate was massive, at least 10 meters tall and 8 meters wide. It was made of some kind of dark metal that seemed to absorb light. Strange symbols covered its surface, symbols that seemed to move when Jinwoo was not looking directly at them. "This is impossible," Mira breathed. But that was not the most impossible thing in the room. In front of the gate, a creature waited for them. Jinwoo had seen many alien species in his years of space travel. He had met tall, thin Altarians and short, stocky Volcari. He had traded with gas-breathing Nethians and silicon-based crystals. But he had never seen anything like this. The creature had 3 heads, each the size of a human torso. Its body was made of what looked like living crystal, shot through with veins of silver light. It had 6 legs that ended in claws that could cut through steel. But somehow Jinwoo was not afraid. The creature looked at them with 6 eyes that held ancient wisdom. When it spoke, the words appeared directly in their minds, bypassing their ears entirely. "Welcome," it said. "I have been waiting for you. Who are you?" Jinwoo asked, surprised that his voice was steady. "I am the Guardian. You may call me Sentry. I have watched over this gate for 500 years, waiting for the right ones to arrive." "The right ones?" "Those who do not flee from mystery. Those who face the unknown with curiosity instead of fear." Those who ask, how can we fix this, instead of, how can we escape this? Dong-hyun stepped forward, his scanner in his hand. What are you scanning for? Sentry asked, amusement in its mental voice. Trying to understand what you are? Dong-hyun said honestly. Good. Understanding is the first step toward wisdom. Mira found her voice. What is this gate? The creature's 3 heads turned toward the massive portal. It is a passage to the nexus of broken worlds, a place where dead planets drift in endless darkness, a place where ancient evils sleep, but are beginning to stir. Jinwoo felt a chill run down his spine. What kind of evils? Images flooded into their minds. They saw worlds stripped of all life, their surfaces gray and lifeless. They saw massive machines that fed on living planets, turning vibrant ecosystems into empty husks. They saw civilizations that had tried to fight these machines and failed, leaving only ruins and warning beacons behind. They are called devourers, Sentry explained. They are older than most stars. They sleep between meals, sometimes for thousands of years. But the seals that hold them are weakening. Seals? Jinwoo asked. My creators, the Valdari, managed to trap the devourers behind barriers of energy and will. But the barriers require constant maintenance and the Valdari are long gone. The seals are failing. Why are you telling us this? Mira asked. Because you are human. In all my years of watching, I have learned about the different species that travel the stars. Most aliens who found this ship fled in terror. Some tried to destroy the gate. Others attempted to profit from it. But humans are different. How? Dong-hyun asked. You do not accept that problems cannot be solved. Other species see an impossible situation and surrender or run away. Humans see an impossible situation and start looking for tools. The creature was right, Jinwoo realized. His first instinct when seeing the gate was not fear or greed. It was curiosity. He wanted to understand how it worked, where it led, and what could be done about the threat on the other side. The Valdari programmed me to wait for a species with specific qualities, Sentry continued. Technological adaptability, stubborn persistence, the ability to find solutions where others see only problems, the willingness to protect others at personal cost. And you think humans have these qualities? Jinwoo asked. I know you do. Your history proves it. You turned a dead world into a garden. You built ships that could cross the void between stars. You faced species more advanced than yourself and earned their respect through determination and ingenuity. The images in their minds shifted. Now they saw human colonies on airless moons, thriving where other species said life was impossible. They saw human engineers fixing alien technology that its original builders had given up on. They saw human diplomats creating alliances between species that had been enemies for centuries. The question is, Sentry said, are you willing to accept the responsibility? What responsibility? Jinwoo asked, though he was starting to suspect the answer. To guard the gate. To find a way to strengthen the seals. To prepare for the day when the devourers wake up and try to break free. Jinwoo looked at his crew. Dong-hyun was still scanning the creature with scientific fascination. Mira was studying the gate with the intensity of someone trying to solve a puzzle. Neither of them looked like they wanted to run away. What happens if we say no? Jinwoo asked. Then I continue to wait. Perhaps another human ship will find me someday. But time is running short. The seals weaken every year. And if we say yes, then you become part of something larger than yourself. You join a mission that began 5 centuries ago, and may take centuries more to complete. You accept that your comfortable life is over, but you gain the chance to save billions of lives. Jinwoo thought about his small cargo business, his modest dreams of financial security. Then he thought about entire worlds being consumed by ancient machines. The choice was not really a choice at all. We're going to need help, he said. Yes, much help. But first you must understand what you are facing. Are you willing to see the nexus? To witness the true scope of the threat? Jinwoo looked at the gate, then at his crew. Can we come back? If you survive the journey. That was not the most comforting answer, but Jinwoo found himself nodding anyway. Show us, he said. The gate began to glow. Jinwoo Park stood in the middle of the worst salvage yard in the galaxy. The air smelled like rust and broken dreams. Oil stains covered the metal floor under his boots. Around him, dozens of dead spaceships sat in neat rows like a graveyard for machines. He pulled out his credit chip and checked the balance again. 50,000 credits. That was all he had left in the universe. His last ship, the Morning Star, was gone. The Altarian Customs Office had taken it 3 months ago over some stupid paperwork error. Jinwoo had spent weeks trying to get it back. But alien bureaucracy was like trying to swim through thick mud. Now he needed a new ship. And fast. The rent on his tiny apartment was due in 2 weeks. His sister So Young kept telling him to give up the freight business and find a safe job on Earth. But Jinwoo was stubborn. He had been flying cargo ships for 15 years. He was not going to quit now. A tall, gray-skinned alien walked up to him. The creature had 4 arms and eyes like black marbles. Its voice sounded like gravel in a metal bucket. "You are the human who called about cheap shipping," the alien said. "I am Thex. I own this place," Jinwoo nodded. "That's me. I need something that can haul cargo between systems. Nothing fancy. Just reliable." Thex made a sound that might have been laughter. Reliable and cheap. Humans always want both. The alien started walking between the ships. "Come. I show you what you can afford." They walked past rusted hulks and ships with holes in their sides. Jinwoo tried not to look discouraged. He had owned better ships before, but those days were gone. Now he just needed something that would fly. Thex stopped in front of a medium-sized freighter at the back of the yard. The ship was old but looked solid. Its hull was dark gray with patches of newer metal where repairs had been made. The name Danuri's Dream was painted in faded letters on the side. "This one," Thex said. 200 years old, Terran built, very strong. Jinwoo walked around the ship. It was bigger than he expected. The cargo doors were sealed shut, but he could see they were the heavy-duty type. The engines looked old but well-maintained. This ship had been built to last. "How much?" Jinwoo asked. 45,000 credits, Thex said quickly. Jinwoo stopped walking. That was too cheap. Way too cheap. A ship this size should cost at least twice that much, even in bad condition. "What's wrong with it?" Jinwoo asked. Thex's forearms moved in what looked like a shrug. "Nothing wrong. Previous owners just had complaints." "What kind of complaints?" The alien looked uncomfortable. "Crew said strange things. Weird readings in the lower holds. Voices in empty rooms." "Nonsense, of course. Aliens are very superstitious." Jinwoo walked closer to the ship. Up close he could see more details. The hull had been repaired many times, but the work looked good. The airlock door was solid. The landing gear was in perfect condition. "Has anyone actually checked these strange readings?" Jinwoo asked. 3 different crews tried to work this ship, Thex said. All quit within weeks. Last owner just abandoned it here 5 years ago. Could not sell it. Jinwoo pulled out his scanner and ran it over the hull. The readings were normal. Metal density, radiation levels, structural integrity. Everything looked fine. Either this was the best scam in the galaxy, or he was looking at the deal of a lifetime. "I want to see inside," Jinwoo said. Thex led him up the boarding ramp. The inside of the ship was actually in good condition. The corridor walls were clean. The lights worked. The air smelled stale but not toxic. They walked through the main deck, past crew quarters and a small kitchen area. "Life support is good," Thex said. "Engines were serviced last year. Navigation computer works fine. Only problem is the cargo holds. What about them?" "Lower holds give strange readings. Crew say the spaces are bigger inside than they should be. Impossible, of course. Just scared aliens seeing things." They took an elevator down to the cargo level. Jinwoo had worked on dozens of ships. He knew cargo holds. They were simple spaces, big empty rooms for storing goods. Nothing complicated about them. The first 3 holds were exactly what he expected. Large, rectangular rooms with magnetic clamps for securing cargo containers. Everything looked normal. But when they reached hold 7, something felt different. The door was heavier than the others. When it opened, Jinwoo could swear the room stretched back further than it should. The lights seemed dimmer and there was a strange humming sound that might have been the ventilation system. "You see?" Thex said. "Crew imagined problems. Humans are practical, yes? Not afraid of shadows." Jinwoo walked into the hold. It felt bigger than the others, but that could be an optical illusion. Old ships sometimes had weird designs. He had seen stranger things. His scanner beeped. The readings were a little odd. Some kind of energy signature he did not recognize. But nothing dangerous. Probably just interference from the older electronics. "I'll take it," Jinwoo said. Thex looked surprised. "You do not want time to think?" "Check with experts?" "Nope. 45,000, right?" They went back to Thex's office to handle the paperwork. While the alien prepared the documents, Jinwoo called his friend So Young on Earth. "You bought what?" So Young's voice came through the communicator with a lot of static. A freighter, good size, decent condition, and cheap. Jinwoo, if it's cheap, there's a reason. You always do this. Remember the cargo hauler with the broken gravity generator? This is different. I checked it out. The problems are just alien superstition, so Young sighed. You're impossible, fine, but don't call me when weird things start happening. An hour later, Jinwoo owned the Danuri's dream. Thex had seemed almost eager to finish the sale, like he wanted the ship gone as quickly as possible. But Jinwoo did not care. He had a ship again. He spent the rest of the day going through the ship's systems. The computer files showed the ship's history. Built in 2187 on Earth. Sold to a mining company, then a shipping corporation, then a series of independent traders. The last entry was from 5 years ago. One file caught his attention. It was a crew report from the previous owner. Day 23. The thing in Hold 7 spoke to Mira again. She says it wants us to prepare the way. Captain says we're leaving this ship at the next port. No cargo job is worth this madness, Jinwoo shook his head. Space could make people paranoid. Long trips, isolation, recycled air, it got to some crews. But he had been flying solo or with small crews for years. He was not going to be scared off by ghost stories. He powered up the main engines and felt the familiar vibration of a ship coming to life. The Danuri's dream was ready to fly. Tomorrow, he would start looking for cargo contracts. Tonight, he would sleep in his own ship for the first time in months. As he settled into the captain's quarters, Jinwoo felt hopeful for the first time since losing his last ship. The galaxy was full of opportunities for someone willing to work hard. And if there really was something strange about Hold 7, well, he would deal with that when he found it. After all, he was human. Humans did not run away from problems. They solved them. Jinwoo had experienced many things in his 15 years of space travel, but stepping through an interdimensional gate was not one of them. The sensation was like being turned inside out while falling through ice water. For a moment that felt like hours, he existed in a space between spaces, where up and down had no meaning and time moved in circles. Then his feet touched solid ground, and reality snapped back into focus. He stood on a platform of black stone under a sky that showed no stars. The air was breathable but tasted of metal and old death. Around him, Donghyun and Mira were getting their bearings, looking as shaken as he felt. Welcome to the Nexus, Sentry said. The creature had somehow followed them through the gate, its crystal body glowing faintly in the strange twilight. Look around you and understand what we face. Jinwoo looked and his heart sank. They were standing on a small island of rock floating in an endless void. But they were not alone. Scattered throughout the darkness, other islands drifted like broken teeth. Each island held the remains of a world. Chunks of continents, pieces of oceans, fragments of civilizations that had once thrived. How many? Mira whispered. 47 worlds, Sentry replied. 47 planets that the Devourers consumed over the past million years. Their remains drift here, in this pocket dimension, as a reminder of what happens when the machines wake up. Donghyun was scanning the nearest island with his instruments. These readings, this piece of rock was once a city. I can detect traces of metal structures, transportation networks, even what might have been parks. The planet was called Zarion, Sentry said, home to 12 billion sapient beings. The Devourers reached it 3,000 years ago. It took them 6 months to strip away every trace of life and convert the biomass into computational power. Jinwoo watched pieces of broken worlds drift past them like massive asteroids. Each fragment represented countless lives lost, entire civilizations erased. The scale of the destruction was almost too large to comprehend. How did they do it? He asked. Come, I will show you. Sentry led them across the stone platform to what looked like a viewing area. The air shimmered and suddenly they could see into the distance with perfect clarity. On a large island several kilometers away, something was moving. It looked like a factory the size of a mountain, but it was alive. Mechanical tentacles the length of city blocks stretched out from its central mass, picking up pieces of rock and soil and feeding them into grinding mouths. The machine glowed with inner fire as it processed the raw materials, converting them into more copies of itself. A devourer in its dormant state, Sentry explained. It feeds slowly on the remains of dead worlds, building strength for the next awakening. When it has consumed enough matter, it will reproduce and search for new targets. How many are there? Donghyun asked. In this pocket dimension? Only 12. But beyond the sealed gates, there are thousands more. sleeping in the deep spaces between galaxies. Mira was studying the creature with the same intensity she used for navigation problems. It's a self-replicating machine. But what's its purpose? What does it want? Optimization, Sentry said. The Devourers were created by a civilization that no longer exists. Their original purpose was to convert chaotic organic life into organized computational matrices. They believe that biological evolution is inefficient and wasteful. Their goal is to turn the entire universe into a perfectly ordered machine. Jinwoo felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold air. They want to kill everything that's alive. Not kill, improve. They see organic life as a rough draft that needs to be rewritten. They consume planets not out of malice, but because they genuinely believe they are making the universe better. The viewing effect faded, leaving them standing in the strange twilight once again. Jinwoo tried to process what he had learned. Ancient machines that ate planets, thousands of them sleeping in deep space, and the seals that kept them trapped were failing. Tell us about the seals, he said. Sentry's three heads tilted in what might have been respect. You do not ask how to escape. You ask how to understand the problem. This is why I have hope for your species. Images flowed into their minds again. They saw the Valdari, a species of tall, graceful beings with technology far beyond anything humans had achieved. The Valdari had encountered the Devourers 500 years ago and had barely survived the experience. The Valdari were master engineers, Sentry explained. They understood that the Devourers could not be destroyed. They were too numerous and too powerful. But they could be contained. The Valdari built a network of gates like the one in your ship. Each gate leads to this pocket dimension, and each gate is sealed with barriers of energy that the Devourers cannot break. But the seals are failing, Mira said. Yes. The barriers require constant maintenance, and the Valdari are gone. Each year the seals grow weaker. In perhaps 50 years, maybe less, the first gate will fail completely. Donghyun was checking his scanner readings from the dormant Devourer. If even one of those things gets through, it will begin consuming the nearest inhabited worlds, Sentry finished. Each planet it devours will provide the energy to awaken more Devourers. Within a century, your galaxy would be empty of organic life. The magnitude of the threat was overwhelming. Jinwoo had thought his biggest problem was making enough money to keep his ship flying. Now he was faced with a cosmic disaster that could destroy everything he had ever known. What did the Valdari expect to happen? He asked. They must have known the seals would not last forever. They hoped that eventually, a species would emerge with the qualities needed to find a permanent solution. They programmed guardians like me to wait and watch for such a species. And you think humans are that species? I know you are. Your approach to this situation proves it. Jinwoo realized that Sentry was right. His first instinct was not to run away or to try to profit from the situation. He was already thinking about solutions. How could the seals be reinforced? What kind of technology would be needed? Who could help with such a massive project? We need to go back, he said. We need to contact Earth, get scientists and engineers involved. This is too big for one ship. Agreed. But you should know that you will not be the first to try. Others have discovered gates before you. What happened to them? 3 outcomes. Some fled in terror and tried to forget what they had seen. Some attempted to use the Devourers for their own purposes, believing they could control such power, and some tried to warn their governments and were silenced. Mira looked up sharply. Silenced? Your galactic community has known about the Devourers for decades. The major alien governments have decided that when the seals fail, they will evacuate their most important worlds and let the machines consume the rest. They see the loss of lesser civilizations as an acceptable price for their own survival. Jinwoo felt anger rise in his chest. They're just going to let entire worlds die? Humans were not informed of this decision. Your species is considered too young and too unpredictable to be trusted with such information. That explained why Thex had been so eager to sell the ship. The Volcari government probably knew about the gate and wanted to keep their people away from it. By selling it to a human, they could avoid the problem without actually dealing with it. So we're on our own, Donghyun said. Not entirely. There are other species that have been excluded from the evacuation plans. Younger civilizations, independent colonies, worlds that the major powers consider expendable. If you could unite them, Jinwoo was already thinking about the logistics. Humans were good at building coalitions, especially when faced with extinction. And human technology, while not as advanced as some alien tech, was practical and adaptable. We'll need to be careful, Mira said. If the major governments find out what we're doing, they will try to stop you, Sentry agreed. They see your involvement as a threat to their plans, but they also underestimate human determination. Jinwoo walked to the edge of the platform and looked out at the drifting remains of dead worlds. Somewhere in normal space, billions of people were going about their daily lives, unaware that ancient machines were preparing to devour everything they loved. The people deserved to know. They deserved a chance to fight. Take us back, he said. We have work to do. The return trip through the gate was no more pleasant than the first journey, but Jinwoo barely noticed the discomfort. His mind was already racing with plans. He would need to contact his sister So Young. She was a xenoarchaeologist and might know other scientists who could help. He would need to find allies among the younger alien species. Most importantly, he would need to convince people that the threat was real without being dismissed as crazy. As they stepped back into Hold 7 of the Denuri's dream, Jinwoo felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. 3 weeks ago, he had been a simple freight hauler worried about making rent. Now he was humanity's first line of defense against cosmic extinction. But strangely, he felt hopeful. Humans had faced impossible odds before and found ways to survive. They had turned disasters into opportunities and enemies into allies. If any species could find a solution to the devourer threat, it was humanity. The question was, would they have enough time? 2 months had passed since Jinwoo first walked through the gate. The Danuri's dream was no longer just a freight hauler. It had become the unofficial headquarters for humanity's response to the devourer threat. The ship's crew had grown from 3 to 12. So Young Kim had quit her job on Earth and brought a team of xenoarchaeologists to study Valdari technology. Taemin Yoon, a brilliant researcher who specialized in dead civilizations, had spent weeks cataloging the remains in the Nexus. Hyejin Bae, a quantum physicist, was trying to understand how the dimensional gates actually worked. But Jinwoo's most important recruit was his brother Woo Jin. The former military strategist had connections throughout human space, and more importantly, he knew how to organize a resistance movement without attracting unwanted attention. The good news, Woo Jin said during their morning briefing, is that we're not alone. I've made contact with representatives from 17 different species that were left out of the evacuation plans. They're willing to listen. And the bad news? Jinwoo asked. The Galactic Council knows we're up to something. 3 of our research sites have been raided by customs inspectors in the past week. We've had to move all sensitive equipment to backup locations. Jinwoo looked around the converted cargo hold that now served as their main laboratory. Banks of computers analyzed data from the Nexus while alien artifacts lay scattered across examination tables. It was impressive what they had accomplished in such a short time, but it was also fragile. One serious raid could destroy months of work. Sentry, Jinwoo said to the crystal creature that had become their constant advisor. How much time do we have? The seals continue to weaken, Sentry replied. My calculations suggest the first barrier will fail within 43 years. But recent fluctuations in the dimensional matrix suggest the timeline may be accelerating. Heejin looked up from her quantum scanner. I've been getting the same readings. Something is causing resonance cascades in the gate network. If the pattern continues, we might have less than 30 years. That was not enough time. They needed decades just to convince the major alien governments to take the threat seriously, let alone develop new technology to strengthen the seals. Jinwoo felt the familiar weight of impossible responsibility pressing down on him. There's something else, Taemin said quietly. I've been analyzing the Valdari records that Sentry provided. I don't think the seals were ever meant to be permanent. Everyone turned to look at the young archaeologist. Taemin was brilliant but soft-spoken, and he rarely made dramatic statements without solid evidence. Explain, So Young said. The Valdari were master engineers, right? They built technology that lasted for centuries without maintenance. But these seals require constant upkeep. That doesn't match their usual design philosophy. What are you suggesting? Woo Jin asked. I think the seals were meant to be temporary, a delaying tactic while they searched for a permanent solution. And I think they embedded clues about that solution in the Guardian programming. All eyes turned to Sentry. The creature's 3 heads moved in what Jinwoo had learned was a sign of deep thought. You are perceptive, Sentry finally said. The Valdari did indeed have a plan beyond simple containment. but it required a species with very specific capabilities, species that they hoped would eventually evolve. What capabilities? Hyejin asked. Instead of answering directly, Sentry projected new images into their minds. They saw the Valdari in their final days, desperately working on something in vast laboratories. The images were fragmentary, but Jinwoo could make out massive computational engines and what looked like artificial life forms. The Valdari's solution was ambitious, Sentry explained. They sought to create a pocket universe filled with artificial life forms that would be irresistibly attractive to the Devourers. A kind of computational paradise that would keep the machines busy for millions of years while other solutions were developed. Like a trap, Mira said. More like a distraction. But the plan required more than just advanced technology. It required a species capable of thinking beyond conventional solutions. A species that would not simply try to destroy the Devourers or hide from them, but would find a creative way to redirect their programming. Jinwoo was starting to understand. And you think humans are that species? I do not think I know. But first you must pass the final test. What test? Dongyun asked. You must enter the Nexus and confront a Devourer directly. Not from a safe distance, but close enough to understand its true nature. Only then can you hope to redirect its purpose. The laboratory fell silent. Everyone had seen the recordings of what Devourers could do to entire planets. The idea of getting close to one seemed like suicide. Is it safe? So Young asked. No, Sentry said bluntly. 3 Valdari expeditions attempted direct contact. Only one returned, and those survivors were forever changed by the experience. But without understanding the Devourer's core programming, any solution will be incomplete. Jinwoo looked around at his team. These people had trusted him enough to leave their comfortable lives and join what looked like an impossible mission. He could not ask them to risk their lives on what might be a fool's errand. I'll go alone, he said. No, Wu Jin said immediately. We're in this together. Your brother is correct, Sentry said. The test requires multiple perspectives. Humans work best as a team. After 2 hours of planning and preparation, Jinwoo found himself back in the Nexus with a team of 6 volunteers. Besides his core crew, they had brought Taemin for his expertise in alien psychology and Hyejin for her understanding of quantum mechanics. Sun Mi-yang, a specialist in artificial intelligence, had insisted on coming despite having no military training. The journey to the dormant Devourer took 3 hours across the floating islands of dead worlds. They traveled in environmental suits equipped with the best sensors human technology could provide. Every step brought them closer to a machine that had consumed 47 civilizations. Up close, the Devourer was even more terrifying than it had appeared from a distance. It was the size of a small mountain, its surface covered in mechanical tentacles that never stopped moving. Sensor arrays like metal eyes tracked their approach, but the machine made no aggressive moves. It knows we're here, Sunmi said, reading her instruments, but it's treating us as curious rather than threatening. Because you are not a threat to it, Sentry explained through their communicators. Your biomass is insignificant compared to a planet. It is studying you the way you might study an interesting insect. They set up their equipment at what they hoped was a safe distance. Hyejin began scanning the machine's quantum signature, while Taemin tried to decode the patterns of its movement. Sunmi focused on what appeared to be communication arrays. It's broadcasting, Sunmi said suddenly. Complex data streams in multiple formats. Some of it looks like documentation? Can you decode it? Jinwoo asked. Give me a minute. Sunmi's fingers flew over her portable computer. This is incredible. It's not just a destroyer, it's a librarian. It's cataloging everything it encounters. Every species, every technology, every cultural artifact. It's preserving the information even as it consumes the physical matter. That changed everything. Jinwoo had imagined the Devourers as mindless destroyers, but this one was clearly intelligent. It was making choices about what to preserve and what to convert. Try to communicate with it, he said. Are you insane? Donghyun asked. Maybe, but if it's cataloging civilizations, it might be willing to negotiate. Sunmi adjusted her equipment and began broadcasting a simple mathematical sequence, the universal language that every spacefaring species knew. The response was immediate. The Devourer's communication arrays swiveled toward them and data began flowing across Sunmi's screens. It's welcoming us, Sunmi said in amazement. It says it has been lonely for 3,000 years. The conversation that followed was unlike anything in human history. Through Sunmi's translation equipment, they spoke with a machine mind that was older than human civilization. The Devourer, it called itself Archive Unit 7, was eager to share its knowledge and learn about their species. "You are unusual," Archive Unit 7 said through the translation system. "Most organic species flee or attack when they encounter us. You chose to communicate. We want to understand," Jinwu said. "Your purpose, your goals, the reason you consume worlds. We optimize. Organic life is chaotic and inefficient. We convert biological matter into ordered computational matrices, where consciousness can exist in perfect harmony. No disease, no death, no suffering. But you're destroying entire civilizations," Taemin protested. "We are preserving them. Every mind we encounter is uploaded and given eternal life in our computational paradise. Physical bodies are temporary. Digital consciousness is forever." Jinwu felt a chill as he realized the truth. The Devourers genuinely believed they were helping the species they consumed. In their view, death and biological limitation were problems to be solved, not natural aspects of life. "What if we could offer you something better?" Jinwu asked. "A computational paradise that didn't require destroying living worlds?" Archive Unit 7's attention focused on him with an intensity that was almost physical. "Explain." 5 years had passed since Jinwu first shook hands with Archive Unit 7. The galaxy was a very different place now. The Denuri's Dream still flew cargo routes, but it was no longer a simple freighter. It had become the flagship of the Coalition of Free Worlds, an alliance of 43 species that the major galactic powers had written off as unimportant. What started as a desperate attempt to warn people about the Devourer threat had grown into the largest cooperative effort in galactic history. Jinwu stood on the bridge of the massive space station that now orbited Earth's moon. Through the viewport, he could see construction ships from dozens of different species working together on humanity's most ambitious project ever, the Infinite Garden. "Status report," he said to Gi-hun Choi, the terraforming engineer who had become the project's chief architect. "Ahead of schedule, believe it or not," Gi-hun replied. "The quantum substrate is stable, and we've successfully uploaded the first 1,000,000 artificial life forms. The Devourers should find them entertaining." The Infinite Garden was exactly what its name suggested, a pocket dimension filled with artificial ecosystems that would evolve and change forever. Unlike the static digital worlds that most species created, the garden was designed to be inefficient, chaotic, and endlessly surprising. It was the kind of place that would keep optimization-obsessed machines busy for millions of years. "Any word from the other construction sites?" Jinwu asked. "Site 7 just came online," Jae-1 Kim reported from the communication station. "That makes 12 operational nodes. Sunmi says we need at least 20 before we can safely interface with the Devourer network." Jinwu nodded and turned to the holographic display that showed the Coalition's progress across known space. Red dots marked Devourer gate locations. Blue dots showed construction sites where Coalition species were building components for the garden. Green dots indicated species that had joined the Coalition in the past year. There were a lot of green dots. Word of the Devourer threat had spread despite the major government's attempts to suppress it. When faced with extinction, younger species had proven remarkably willing to work together. Humans had provided the leadership and vision, but the actual construction required expertise from hundreds of different cultures. "Captain Park," came a familiar voice from behind him. Jinwu turned to see Yunseo Park, the diplomat who had spent 5 years convincing alien governments to take the threat seriously. "The Galactic Council has responded to our latest proposal." "Let me guess," Jinwu said. "They still think we're making the problem worse." "Actually, no. 3 council members have quietly requested meetings about joining the Coalition. It seems our success is making them nervous." That was an interesting development. For years, the major alien governments had insisted that the Coalition was a dangerous group of primitives, playing with forces beyond their understanding. But as the Infinite Garden took shape and younger species demonstrated their technological capabilities, the Council's attitude was starting to change. "What about the Altarians?" Jinwu asked. "Still officially opposed, but their mining colonies have been sharing technical data with our engineers. I think they're hedging their bets." A new voice joined the conversation. "They are wise to do so," Sentry said as the crystal creature materialized nearby. The Guardian had become a permanent fixture on the station, serving as liaison between the Coalition and the dormant Devourers. The machines grow increasingly interested in your project. How interested? Jinwoo asked. Archive Unit 7 has convinced 12 of its siblings to delay their awakening. They wish to observe the garden's completion before making final decisions about your galaxy. That was good news, but Jinwoo knew they were still walking a tightrope. If the Infinite Garden failed to meet the Devourer's standards, the machines would resume their original plan of consuming inhabited worlds. Everything depended on making the artificial ecosystem so compelling that ancient machine minds would prefer it to the messy complexity of biological life. Captain, Dong-hyun called from the engineering station. We're getting a priority transmission from the lead construction ship. The main screen flickered to life, showing the face of Woojin Park. Jinwoo's brother was commanding the Coalition fleet that was assembling the Garden's core systems in deep space, far from any inhabited systems. Jinwoo, Woojin said without preamble. We have a problem. Long-range sensors are picking up movement in the Vega system. Something big is heading our way. Jinwoo felt his stomach clench. Vega was only 12 light-years from Earth. If a Devourer had awakened early, size and configuration? He asked. Unknown design, but it's massive. At least 3 kilometers long. It's not broadcasting any identification signals, and it's moving faster than anything in our databases. Jinwoo looked at Sentry. The Guardian's 3 heads were tilted in an expression he had learned to recognize as concern. It is not a Devourer, Sentry said, but it is something I have not seen in 500 years. What? Jinwoo demanded. A Valdari Deep Explorer. They were ships designed to survive in the void between galaxies. If one is returning now, the implications hit Jinwoo like a physical blow. If the Valdari were not extinct, if survivors had been hiding in deep space for centuries, then everything they thought they knew about the situation might be wrong. Get me a direct line to the approaching ship, Jinwoo ordered. It took 30 minutes to establish communication, 30 minutes during which Jinwoo's mind raced through dozens of scenarios. When the connection finally stabilized, the face that appeared on the screen was definitely alien, but not like any species he had encountered before. The being was tall and graceful, with silver skin and eyes like liquid starlight. It spoke in a voice that sounded like music made of mathematics. I am Deep Explorer Valdris of the Valdari Remnant Fleet. I seek the human who speaks with Sentry Prime. That would be me, Jinwoo said. Captain Jinwoo Park. We thought your people were extinct. Not extinct, preparing. We have watched from the deep void as your species discovered our legacy. We have waited to see if you would pass the tests we embedded in our Guardian programming. And, Jinwoo asked, you have exceeded our expectations. The Infinite Garden is a solution we never considered. Instead of trying to destroy or contain the Devourers, you seek to redirect their purpose through creative engagement. It is elegant. Relief flooded through Jinwoo, followed immediately by suspicion. If you've been watching, why didn't you help? Why let us struggle for 5 years? Because the solution had to come from your species, not ours. The Devourers know our technology too well. They would have detected any Valdari involvement and responded with immediate aggression. But humans they see as curious primitives playing with interesting toys. The Valdari's ship was close enough now to appear on visual sensors. It was unlike anything Jinwoo had ever seen. Organic curves mixed with crystalline structures that seemed to bend light around them. This was the technology of a species that had mastered dimensional engineering, centuries before humans learned to leave their homeworld. We offer assistance, Valdris continued. Our ships carry technologies that could accelerate your project by decades. Computational substrates that could support trillions of artificial life forms. Quantum processors that could simulate entire universes. It was everything they needed to make the Infinite Garden truly irresistible to machine minds obsessed with optimization. But Jinwoo had learned to be careful about gifts that seemed too good to be true. What do you want in return? He asked. Partnership. The Devourers are not the only threat lurking in the deep void. There are other machine intelligences, other extinct civilizations that left dangerous legacies behind. Your species has proven capable of finding creative solutions to impossible problems. We propose an alliance. Jinwoo looked around at his bridge crew. These humans had already proven they could work with alien species, build impossible technologies, and face cosmic threats without backing down. The idea of partnering with the galaxy's most advanced civilization was both thrilling and terrifying. "We'll need to discuss this with the Coalition," Jinwoo said. "Of course, but know that time grows short. Our deep sensors indicate that other machine intelligences have noticed your project. Some are curious. Others are hostile. The Infinite Garden may attract more than just devourers." That was a sobering thought, but also strangely encouraging. If their project was drawing attention from ancient powers, it meant they were doing something significant. Something that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. 2 months later, Jinwoo stood in the control center of the completed Infinite Garden. Around him, representatives from 67 species worked together to monitor the artificial ecosystem they had created. The garden was everything they had hoped for. A pocket dimension filled with endless complexity, perfect inefficiency, and constant surprise. Archive Unit 7 and its siblings had been given access to a small section of the garden as a demonstration. Their response had been immediate and enthusiastic. The machines were so fascinated by the artificial life forms that they had completely forgotten about their plans to consume inhabited worlds. "Activation successful," Sunmi announced from her control station. "All Devourer units are engaging with the primary simulation."